Hey everyone, welcome back to the most interactive wrestling show on the interweb. Welcome to Wrestling with Omer. I know I've been absent for the past few days, but we are back and better than ever. As always, put your questions in the chat. This is the interactive show where if you leave a question, you will get an answer no matter what we're talking about. The topics we have are Miro potentially leaving AEW and going back to WWE. His wife, the artist formerly known as Lana, currently known by her real name, CJ Perry, did offer her thoughts on that situation. And we also have an insight from Dave Meltzer on some rejected creative that might play into Miro's dissatisfaction with AEW right now. Also going to be talking about changes coming to All Elite Wrestling Television, and of course, whatever the hell else you guys want to talk about. You guys want to talk about something, put it in the chat. I'll get to it. You know how this rolls. But before we do start officially, I want to remind everyone out there, if you're watching, welcome, firstly. Secondly, if you don't mind, do me a huge favor. Please hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. That's for the people over at youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave a 5-star review and go follow. So many plugs today. And finally, I should say, go follow our new Twitter page at Real Take W. There we go. That's what it was, because we settled on Real Take W. Everything was taken. But go follow us on Twitter at Real Take W. Real Take Wrestling on Twitter at Real Take W. We got Daniel in the chat. Welcome, Daniel. It says, if Miro comes back to WWE, who would you want to feud with him? I have a few names in mind. Firstly, though, let's get to the actual news of what has happened over the last number of days with Miro and where everything seems to be going. So, CJ Perry, again, formerly known as Lana, she is the wife of Miro. She's also a former WWE superstar in her own right as well. She said on, Mike Wenmacher, hopefully I'm saying that name right. She said on a radio show, she expressed interest in him potentially returning to WWE, saying, quote, "The great thing about wrestling is it doesn't matter what company you work for, what promotion, anything can happen. Let's be honest. We know that everyone always returns back to WWE at some point." She was talking about Rusev Day being Miro's most popular gimmick when he was Rusev in WWE. She went on to say, "Rusev Day will never die. It's always going to be around. The kids are always going to want to sing it, and I'm sure it will make a return in WWE at some point." So, there we go. Again, the reason that this is big news is because, one, we are hearing it from such a close source to Miro himself, being his family, his wife, his partner. And for people who might want to discount that, I think that they're really missing the point here, because it would be one thing if you had a friend of Miro say something. It would be another thing if you had a distant relative of Miro say something, or an alleged member of its inner circle. We know where CJ Perry / Lana lies in the priority of Miro. He mentions her in her promos for a reason. They are a happily married couple, more happily married than I think most couples out there would be. They're as close as could be. So, to hear this, it really makes you think there's something to the idea of Miro either wanting to go back to WWE, or them trying to, or Lana, I should say, maybe trying to get something out of this and maybe rustle some feathers a little bit. I really do think that that's what this is. I think this is kind of trying to rustle AEW's feathers and being like, hey, use him. This wasn't the only piece of news that we got on this. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter and radio said the following on his radio show this week. Quote, "In September, Tony Khan came to Miro and he had this idea which would build to a match at the November pay-per-view, and Miro didn't want to do it." He said, "A lot of people who come to WWE are very leery," obviously Bryan Danielson being the exception, "about doing jobs. A lot of people who come to WWE or come from WWE are leery about doing jobs. And then it becomes very difficult to book when you don't really want to do programs where you're going to lose. So that is what he said about this. And he hinted that the entire reason that Miro rejected this creative from Tony Khan and AEW is because it involved him losing at the November pay-per-view, which was Full Gear. Now, does this add another layer to things? And again, the weird thing about wrestling journalism and wrestling news and things like that is when you have enough voices or when you have enough stories popping around, right? You can pretty much find out, or you pretty much know, like, either the direction of the truth or the actual truth itself when you put all the stories together, right? Because, yes, sure, some people may get sources wrong. Some things might be exaggerated and all those types of things. But for the most part, you can generally tell the direction of things. And considering what we heard from Meltzer, considering what we heard from Lana, I think that it's obvious that Miro is not happy in AEW with his creative. And it's obvious that best case for him staying in AEW, this is Lana and Miro trying to say, hey, find me something to do. Otherwise, I have options, especially with Triple H in charge now. And it is going to be a problem for AEW. Like, don't think, like, we can talk about how off and on Hunter's booking of WWE TV has been. We can talk about how WWE is still out here making bad decisions like firing Mandy Rose. We can talk about all that. But let's not dismiss the idea of WWE being a place where people who are in AEW are going to automatically say, oh, I'm not going there. Of course. They know they can get a bag in WWE. The entire reason you get in this business, by the way, or in that business, by the way, it's not just because you love professional wrestling. Obviously, it's a big motivating factor, but you're also there to make money. You're there to make a living, a livelihood. And Miro's no different. We got Daniel in the chat saying, how do you feel about... Oh, 1 second. 1 second. Well, this is interesting. And we're good. All right, my bad. Sorry. Technical difficulties, behind the scene look. You guys got to see my nice PJs. Anyway, Daniel in the chat asks, how do you feel about AEW making some changes on Dynamite and Rampage? We will talk about that as well later on in the show, so don't worry about that. MGT in the chat says, Miro going back to WWE is the best move he can make for his career. And you could argue right now that that is the case, since AEW basically has done nothing with Miro. He hasn't even been on TV since Forbidden Door. And prior to that, he had been out with injury. So basically, we're looking at, I think, what was it, Full Gear last year? That he was like really like full-time, full-throttle Miro? Or whenever he lost the title, which yeah. It was a long, long time ago that he lost that belt. And wow, it is crazy to think how far Miro has fallen, like, just from not even the pecking order, just from AEW television. Because when he was the guy, when he was, the destroyer Miro, when he was doing all the great things that we saw him do, he was one of the best things on TV. Those promos were amazing. His title reign, you could argue that he had the best TNT title reign. In my opinion, it was the best. I like Darby Allin's as well, don't get me wrong, but for me, that was the best title reign of that title. And because he would just come out week in, week out and have amazing matches. We got Daniel in the chat saying, how are you liking Bray Wyatt? We'll talk about that in just a little bit. MGT says, Mandy did, so I don't blame WWE for firing her, but I respect her for choosing her fan time. I mean, look, To touch on the Mandy Rose thing real quick. I mean, WWE, it's possible that WWE had sponsors maybe say something like, hey, we don't appreciate or we don't want to be associated with something like this. But for WWE to fire someone who they built like the last 400 days of TV around for that, I think it's a little silly considering like 10 years ago, whatever, they were plugging Playboy, and then Shawn Michaels did Playgirl magazine. And I mean, granted, they're not actively doing it, but you get my case. It does come across as a little hypocritical. That being said, if that was the case, I get it. And also for Mandy Rose, she's made $500,000 since she was released, and according to some reports, she is set to be a millionaire before Christmas. So I'm sure she's doing just fine. I'm sure she's happy. And worst case, this was a big advertisement for her content. So good for her. Big shout out to Mandy Rose, and she'll land on her feet. Like if I'm AEW, I'm like, okay, yeah, yes, get Mandy Rose in the door. Or if I'm anyone, I'm gonna get Mandy Rose in the door. MGT in the chat, or sorry, Daniel, I'm gonna go back to your question. If Miro comes back to WWE, who would you have him feud with? So there are a few people you could put in that situation. I think Miro should honestly go on like or Rusev, I guess. I mean, bring him in as a face. Don't bring him in as heel, because you automatically, like with the name Rusev, you're gonna revive the name Rusev. With that is gonna come the Rusev Day chants. Bring him in as a face. Bring him in as, you know, this beloved guy, and do exactly what you should have done with the Rusev Day to begin with. Just have him be an over ass kicking machine. That's what Miro is. That's what Rusev was. And that's what he should be whether he goes back to WWE or stays in AEW. With AEW, I think that there is still a lot to be desired as far as seeing him work heel, because I'm telling you, like latter half of 2021 was his year. Like especially the first half into Q3 of 2021, he was doing some of the best work of his entire career as the Redeemer. And then his creative just fell out of whack. And look, to very quickly speak on the point of the report that he didn't want to job, right? Or he didn't want to lose, not job, because there's a difference between jobbing out and losing. Losing is like you lose in a match, but it's like fairly competitive and all that kind of stuff. But jobbing is like you're there to only put someone over. If Miro didn't want to lose, the number one thing I would want to know is who that is, because if it's someone who is like really below him on the pecking order, then maybe I could see his point a little bit. But if it's not, and if it's like someone like, I'm just going to throw a name, this is not reported, so don't report it or don't put this in rumors. This is just an example. If it was someone like Hangman Page, or it was someone like, I don't know, Bryan Danielson, then I would be like, okay, eventually people have to lose. Like eventually you have to lose, no matter who you are, unless you're Jade Cargill or Hook. But my point being, or Roman Reigns, look, eventually over the years someone has to lose. You have to lose to somebody. That always happens. Now, what it really depends on is how you lose. Maybe it was pitched in a way where Rusev didn't like the creative. Maybe that's what it was. Even then, it's interesting, man. But it is something we got to keep an eye on. MGT says, that little oof. JD is live too. Well, yeah, JD. He got burnt on Twitter not even Twitter. He got burnt by the internet like a few weeks ago. Not touching that. Daniel in the chat says, how are you liking Bray Wyatt and LA Knight feud thus far? Okay, I want to be clear here about one thing. I'm a big-time Bray Wyatt fan. I thought The Fiend was one of the best things that WWE had done for a very long time until they repeatedly drove it into the ground. Firefly Funhouse is my favorite cinematic match of all of them. You want to count the final deletion, the ultimate deletion, the Boneyard match, all of that. Firefly Funhouse was my favorite. I thought that was the peak of the Fiend, and that is what he should have been. That being said, Bray Wyatt had a great return. And for the past number of weeks, I have been saying the same damn thing. Okay, when are we going to get to the point? For the last few weeks, Bray Wyatt has been coming out and cutting these, hey, I'm here for you people, and that's what I do. Hey, late night, what are you doing here? Oh, man, you better watch out, man. Uncle Howdy's gonna get it. And Uncle Howdy's here. Great. We already knew Uncle Howdy was a thing. It's not like this mysterious thing that just popped up on our screen, right? What should have happened in Chicago on Friday was the reveal of who Uncle Howdy is. Not like, oh, I'm looking at it. It's not Bray Wyatt, Michael. Oh, no. They're dragging this thing on for too damn long. And when someone like me, who is a big Bray Wyatt fan, a defender of Bray Wyatt, not to the extent of some people on the internet who go way too far, but someone who actively like tries to balance out that criticism that Bray Wyatt isn't as good as people think he is. Even me, I'm just like, man, they're really dragging this out. It's been this has been dragging out since September. This has been dragging out since September. We're at the end of the year, and the dude hasn't even had a match. And Bray Wyatt isn't the kind of guy who needs to have a match every week. But you would expect that the dude would at least have had a match 3 months in, right? And the fact that he hasn't, it really just, I'm just saying, man. Like, I know people want to say, let it play out, let it play out. I am the guy. That's my big thing. Let it play out. But when week after week after week after week after week after week, I see like virtually no progression. Like here's the thing. Guys, people can argue that the Firefly Funhouse match was cinema, which it was. This ain't cinema, man. This is like I'm watching, I don't even know what this is like. I'm just watching like paint dry. Sometime, like not paint dry. That insinuates that it's boring, but I just feel like it's one of those things where you know when you watch one of those movies, this is a great example. You know when you watch one of those movies that's like 3 hours long, and you're like, they could have done this in 90 minutes or less, and it would have been like 1,000 times better. That's what this is. I'm just like, get to the point. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be anticipating at this point. I'm just like, oh, come on. Hurry up. Do something. And they're just like, yeah, man, Uncle Howdy, he's gonna get you, man. No, be a dog. We got MGT in the chat saying, I know they've dragged it, but we just got to be patient. I'm being patient, man. It's been 3 months. I'm just like, something has to happen. I also don't think that LA Knight was the best opponent for Bray. I just think I think LA Knight should be established by himself first before you put him in such a big, not a big feud, but such a feud with a guy like Bray Wyatt who needs to win. I think it wasn't the best choice. By the way, guys, if you're just joining us, first of all, welcome. Secondly, if you haven't already done so, do me a big favor and hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video, stream, podcast, whatever the hell else we do on here is released. Daniel in the chat says, I'm enjoying FTR's matches and with some great wrestlers, and I can't wait to see what happens next for them in AEW. That is if they stay in AEW. I mean, there's talk that their contracts are going to expire at some point in spring 2023. And that eventually they could just go on a big indie run and just get all the titles on the indies, which they've basically already done. But they've said that. They said that I think Dax Harwood was the guy who said that he would love to do he would love to do a thing where they just wrestle indies for a year, because they're going to get paid. Regardless, they're going to get paid. But if they just wrestle indies for a year and kind of just do their thing, And that could be cool to see. MGT in the chat says, well, we've got the answer that Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt are indeed a different person, but it wasn't the answer we wanted. It's not even like it wasn't the answer we wanted. Like, guys, it's just dragged on, like, to the point where I'm just done. I'm not done. I'm just like, oh, come on, get to the point. MGT says, I'm fine with LA Knight being the guy in the feud with Bray. I mean, I'm fine with it too. I just think LA Knight's really talented, and I think, like, especially after everything that they've done with him, the WWE over the past year has done with him, bringing him up to the main roster, repackaging him as what was he, Marcus Dupree, Rene Dupree's long lost cousin, and what they did with the Maximum Male Models thing, like, I was just like, come on, guys, like, and then they've repackaged him back to LA Knight, and we're supposed to forget about all the fun times with his sister and Mansoor. Like, come on. That being said, look, it is what it is. LA Knight's a great performer. He's cutting great promos. Good for him. Max Dupree. Thank you. Again, Rene Dupree's long lost cousin. That's why they spelled the name differently. Anyway, guys, again, if you haven't already done so, do me a big time favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. As far as who he should wrestle next, Daniel, I will say that I would like to see Bray Wyatt kind of finish out that feud with Braun Strowman. I know a lot of people don't, which is fine. I would like to see it because I think, like, that was like the one guy who he needed to just finish out in when he was going through all that. Randy Orton's another one. I'm like, guys, did we forget that Randy Orton burned Bray Wyatt alive? Like, or did we just forget that? Like, and they had that terrible WrestleMania match, so maybe not. I don't know, but I don't know. Max Dupree / LA Knight. I just not mine. Daniel said, if the Bloodline turn on Sammy, would he be as over as Bryan was in 2013? It's a good question. As over, yes. As beloved, I'm not sure. Like over in that he'll get reactions, but beloved as in, like, he'll just ride that out for the rest of his career. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I mean, yes, generally yes. Okay, we're going vibe check here. Vibe check, yes, he would. I think. And again, I've been burned on the internet for this take. Sami Zayn should be the guy to beat Roman Reigns for one of the titles. People gonna be mad. People gonna be like, oh,
you're not building new stars. You're just giving the title to the older stars, the ones who've been around. What about Braun Breaker? What about Grayson Waller deserves a championship?
Which he does. Grayson Waller is a better Austin Theory than Austin Theory. Put some respect on his name. That being said, I think the best story in wrestling right now undoubtedly is the Bloodline. Everything that has happened with them as a group, with Sami Zayn kind of inserting himself into the Bloodline, and Jey Uso and his feud, and everything that has played out on our screens has been great. We love Usi. Juicy Usi. Who would have thought that would get over? But it did. And Sami Zayn has been the guy. And above all, it would be, and I know people want to be like, oh my God, Sami Zayn, he's not as good as blah, blah, blah. First of all, in the ring, he's as good as anyone. On promos, right now, he's as good as anyone. Except for maybe MJF. But for being real, this story lends itself to Sami Zayn being the underdog who gets burnt by the Bloodline and has to fight off the entire Bloodline to win the title. That's what this is all. Whether or not it was intentional, I'm sure it was 100% unintentional, right? 100%. But it happened. And one of the bigger tests of Triple H's new regime is going to be how he adapts to evolving and changing situations. Because we know that Vince McMahon wasn't always the best at that. Bryan Danielson is the perfect example. The original plan up until like January was for him to be wrestling Sheamus at WrestleMania 30. And they were going to ride that out until the Royal Rumble happened. And oof, that was bad for Bautista. But man, it is just I'm telling you guys, like, again, people are gonna be mad. People are gonna be like,
You don't know I'm in wrestling. I'm like, I don't use that guy on YouTube.
whatever. My take, my opinion. That's where this that is the storybook ending that I want at a WrestleMania. Because we look at the past few main events of WrestleMania, like outside, like or Roman Reigns involved main events of WrestleMania. Like, think about them, right? You had this past year that terrible match with Brock. You had like the year before, what was that, 33? That was, I mean that was a good match, but Roman Reigns, the bad guy, won. And then that wasn't 33, but you get my point. And just so on and so on. He shit match with Brock Lesnar, shit match with Brock Lesnar. Like, you know what I mean? It's been a while since we've had that conquering hero type of thing with the Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns is the guy who needs to be conquered by somebody. Just saying. MGT in the chat says WWE is PG. They can't talk like MJF. They might. So here's the thing. I think the PG thing is like, it's not an excuse for like not being able to cut good promos. And I think Sami Zayn, you could argue, has been more effective on the mic than the vast majority of people in AEW have been over the past year. I think he's been one of the best on the mic. Daniel, I think content and context and things like that matter more. I don't think you need to be cursing and saying, oh, everyone's mid and you're addicted to crack and all that stuff that MJF does. We got Daniel in the chat saying, if Triple H brought back some classic pay-per-views, what would you like to see him bring back? Armageddon. Bring back Armageddon and bring back like the like doom, like not the Doomsday, but like, you know, the like all like the damn like the cars and like the wreckage. Like, I want WWE to just have good sets. Like that would be cool. Armageddon would be one. I would love to see the Backlash like ciphers, like the sliding like little like blades coming back. That would be cool. Yeah, like and I think like they've done a good job of incorporating some of that stuff with NXT. Like, they brought back Halloween Havoc for an NXT show. So that's cool to see. But I think you will see a little bit more of that with Triple H in charge, especially as he has said they're going to try to move away from, you know, like Hell in a Cell being like its own pay-per-view, and instead have that be a blow-off. I think you're going to see less of those. You're also going to see Money in the Bank because it's just too big of a draw not to. Guys, again, as always, welcome. If you haven't already done so, be sure to put your questions in the chat. Hit that like button. It helps out the algorithm, helps the channel grow. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. MGT says, here's a hot take. AEW needs Goldberg. MGT, I'm going to need you to go a little more in depth on that. You might want to explain that one. Why do they need Oldberg trying to murder people? No, I don't need that. No, I'm just going to say no. No. He's going to kill someone. Like, he's gonna drop him with that suplex that he calls a jackhammer. And no, he's going to hurt somebody and himself. Moving on real quick. Let's get to the news about AEW. I know, Daniel, you mentioned this in the chat. So Tony Khan has revealed that there are going to be changes coming to AEW television next year. So he was having a conversation with Scott Fishman from TV Insider, and he said the following, and I quote, I don't want the, and I quote, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag necessarily, especially so close to the big day. But at the start of 2023, we're going to open the year on Wednesday, January 4th, with the first Dynamite in Seattle, marking a full year of Dynamite on TBS. We'll definitely have a new look, to say the least. I'm excited about it. I think it's a nice thing to present to the fans, but frankly, I found more so than ever, the more you talk about these things, when you build them up, you don't want to create expectations that are impossible. I will say that the set will be beautiful, though. So there we go. You heard Tony Khan mention, talk about the set. You also heard him mention and it wasn't in that quote, but he also in the same interview mentioned that there's gonna be more of a differentiating look between AEW Dynamite and AEW Rampage, which in my opinion is a great thing. Now, as far as AEW getting a new look, I think it's good because, and I'm not the only one, I think the graphics for Dynamite, they were great when they started. They had this kind of like indie feel, upstart feel. Like it was cool. And now it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, what's next? What's the next evolution in AEW? Like, what are we doing from here on out? Like, as much as I like the sets, and I do. I really especially like the pay-per-view sets that they have because they are different. That's why I like them. But I think it's time to evolve that. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to change every little thing about the set, but it means like, okay, like how can we re-envision this, right? Because these are the current sets, right? They're pretty much the same. I hope they also kind of change the colors a little bit. I think Dynamite especially could use a little bit more color. Now, I'm not saying change the ring ropes. I hate that. Don't change the ring ropes. Don't do any of that. But, the set could be different. You can still have the people coming from different entrances like I like. But, you could have like, maybe a Titantron. Maybe a little bit more of a design. And above all, like, you know what? This is my thing. Above all, I don't give a shiznit about the set as much as I do lighting up the fans. And I know, I'm sorry to the people who are like, oh, but you have to focus on the action inside the ring. My G, AEW, when it started, one of the coolest things about them and that made them stand out and made me like think that was so cool was the fact that they lit the fans in the arena, especially on the hard cam side, so that you could see, one, their reactions, two, their faces, and three, more importantly, it added color to the show. Because right now it's just a black background, basically, they're wrestling in front of. It adds so much to the show when you get to see those reactions, and you get to see the amount of color, right, shine through in the background of these of all of this action you're seeing. I think it made the show feel more alive. And way less sanitized than it is right now. Like, that's just my take. I know people disagree. We got Daniel in the chat saying, I'm sad that Sasha is not coming back to WWE, but I'm also happy for her doing what she's doing right now outside of WWE. I mean, yes, I think that's a great way to look at it. Like, part of me is like, dude, like, they need to run back. I want to see Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair again. Like that's a great rematch that doesn't even need a story to be told, and I want to see it. But Sasha Banks doesn't want to do that. Okay, that's fine too, because she can go and have great matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling with Kairi. She can go have great matches in AEW with Britt Baker or Hikaru Shida or whoever the hell she wants to, because she is Mercedes Varnado. She can do whatever the hell she wants because she is that. She's that woman. And look, people want to say like, oh man, like she's not actually done with WWE. She's done with WWE, guys. She's done. Is there a small sliver of a chance that she's going to go back? Maybe. According to some reports, she's already in Japan. So she's gonna be at Wrestle Kingdom whether you like it or not. At this point, I think we're too close to it. Like, Wrestle Kingdom's still like 3 weeks away, but they're finalizing everything. You would think that they are going to also advertise her a few days before and not just have her be a surprise, but I could see that going either way. That being said, Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Varnado, will be at Wrestle Kingdom this year. And according to some reports out there, she's getting paid a good amount of money. And if you're getting paid a good amount of money, odds are they probably want you wrestling. So it'll be cool to see. We'll find out though. We'll find out at the January 4th show. Daniel in the chat says, "Who's your favorite underrated superstar in AEW? Favorite underrated superstar in AEW?" Oh, there's a few of them. I would say prior to a few weeks ago, I would have said Malachi Black because he just came in with such a bang. And then, like, I was so excited to see all the House of Black stuff, and then it just never materialized. But right now, the one guy I keep coming back to that I'm just like, man, like, I really wish they were doing more with this guy because he's ready, is Dante Martin. I understand he's doing the tag team thing with Darius, and good for him. Bless him. Bless his brother. I'm glad he got back from the injuries and all that and the accident. But Dante Martin is a bona fide stud. He's a superstar. That dude has got it. Like, no disrespect to everyone out there who's busting their butt right now in AEW, but for me, he's the underrated guy. Like, that I'm just like, guys, what are we doing? Why is Dante Martin not wrestling on this show? You know? And why? And forget Rampage. Nobody watches that shit. Dynamite. Have him wrestle on Dynamite. It's crazy. Kevin in the chat, welcome Kevin, says, Miro needs to go back to WWE. AEW dropped the ball with him. He is still over with the fans, and his promo skills got better. Yeah. You know what? Tell me when he's telling lies, because Kevin didn't just lie to me. It's the God's honest truth. AEW started off, I know people didn't like the stuff he did with Kip Sabian. I honestly thought it was pretty funny. But started off lukewarm, had that great TNT title reign, as the Redeemer, cut amazing promos, had a great feud with Eddie Kingston, loses the belt, and ever since then he's been floundering. So yeah, I agree. At this point, he just needs to be used, and the company that has TV time to use him is WWE. AEW, unfortunately, is not in that situation. But speaking of underrated superstars, I still got to say this, and Kurt Angle agrees with me on this. Chad Gable is, look, as much as I love what he's doing with Otis, I think it's funny, ha ha ha. How is that guy not, like, you're in the main event in WWE? Like genuinely, how? He is literally like the second coming of Kurt Angle. And you could argue that, like, his charisma is better than Kurt Angle. Like, at least, like, early on in his career it was, comparatively. I'm just like, dude, what are we doing here? Why is he still running around with Otis going, shoosh? Like, how is this guy not a serious threat to the title? That's what I don't understand. He's a genuine Olympian. He could genuinely whoop everybody's ass on that roster. Tie him in knots. And above all, Kurt Angle even said, he's like, I don't get it. I don't get how, like, he's just like a mid-card tag team guy. It makes no sense. Chad Gable is the most underrated wrestler in the entire world. Most underutilized wrestler in the entire world comparatively to his talent. Like, that's a guy, like, you give him like a few months, boom, to the moon. MGT says, I hope Triple H gives Alpha Academy and Chad Gable their big break in 2023. I mean, unfortunately, like the saddest part about all of it was, I mean, even before, I guess, they broke up, like, what Chad Gable and Jason Jordan were doing was so cool. Like, they were like Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, except better, because their matches were off the hook and they were so over. Oh my God. And it sucks that WWE ended up doing that damn, like, oh, he was my actor, who's my son. First of all, how is Chad Gable not the son of Kurt Angle? like, look, I understand, man. Like, I'm not saying, like, Jason Jordan couldn't be his son, right? But my G, like Jason Jordan, Like, could you imagine those promos? Chad Gable being Kurt Angle's illegitimate son. That would be amazing. That would be freaking awesome. And I know he's on TV. I know, but it's just he's presented it more so as a joke. He's not a threat. He's a joke. That's what I don't like. You take a guy like Otis, he went from a joke to having the most anticipated match at WrestleMania in 2020. There was nobody was no one was like going like, oh my god, it's gonna be. Everyone was the most over storyline going into WrestleMania was the Otis Mandy Rose storyline, and they did a similar thing where they were just like, Otis, he's too big to be. Look at him, he's gonna eat it. It's probably what Vince McMahon said word for word, verbatim. MGT says, let's be honest, people like Andrade and Malachi were never going to be big in AEW because they were never like world champion in WWE. So I hear that criticism, right? And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I am saying that I think those are two different scenarios. Malachi at one point was presented as that guy. Like his initial program with Cody Rhodes, I thought was the best introduction for him. And he just hasn't been doing anything ever since. I mean, recently, I like what he's been doing. I think they're telling the storyline where Malachi and the House of Black are going to be the first up to bat following whenever the Elite win the titles, the trios titles, which I think is going to be on the January 11th show in LA. So if that's the case, and we get Elite versus House of Black, and House of Black wins, that would be so cool. IMO. Guys, we're heading down the home stretch of this show. Just a few minutes left. If you haven't already done so, do me a big time favor. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Kevin says, Andrade's promos are terrible. I don't think they're as terrible as people think they are. I think, like, obviously, I think his cadence is off and all that, but, like, I think I mean, he was actually, dude, I liked him with Chavo. I liked him with Chavo as his mouthpiece, not gonna lie. Daniel says, I would love to see Andrade come back to WWE. His matches are amazing. Andrade can't talk. Everybody knows that. I mean, when he had Zelina Vega with him, that was when he was at his best. He didn't need to talk because he did his wrestling do the talking for him, and Zelina Vega basically is just the best mouthpiece one of the best mouthpieces you could ask for. Like, she's awesome at that. And she's actually good in the ring. People give her a lot of crap. I don't know why. But people give everyone a lot of crap. People give me a lot of crap. It's what it is. It's, as Booker T would say, it's what you do when you get into this business. Although I'm not in that business. I'm in the YouTube business. By the way, Booker T, man, you guys see him bury Mandy Rose? Like, he was asked, like, what's next for Mandy Rose after releasing? He's like, man, let me tell you. I don't think that Mandy Rose should go to AEW. And I'm just like, what is this guy? He is Booker T, like I know a lot of people get accused of being like shills, right? And it's like, oh, he's on X or someone, like, people say, oh, Sean Ross Sapp is on AEW's payroll, or Dave Meltzer's on AEW's payroll, or all that crap, right? One thing that I think is undeniable is that Booker T, first of all, Booker T is 100% on WWE's payroll. But, like, he's doing what you do when you're on someone's payroll, which is not towing the company line. Are we good? I think we're back. But yeah, he's not just towing the company line. He's just saying the most outlandish crap you can say is Booker T. I don't know, man. He's like, CM Punk not gonna draw anything in AEW. I'm like, oh, really? Come on now. MGT in the chat says, who needs Andrade when you got Santos Escobar? Santos Escobar is really good too. Oh man. Well, guys, this has been fun. I've enjoyed this. We're going to be doing more of these hopefully over the next week or two. Guys, be sure to check out all the great videos we have in the archives. I'm trying to get the watch time up. So you can tell we are well on our way to 3,000 subscribers, which I'm flustered at. I'm bewildered at, and I'm so humbled by. So thank you guys for helping us pass 2K and nearing towards 3,000 in such a short time. I think we only hit 1,000 just like earlier this month. So that is really cool, and I appreciate every single one of you, from MGT to Kevin to Daniel and Cincy, everyone who's ever supported the channel. We're gonna keep growing the community, but yeah, just thank each and every one of you. You guys are all awesome. Be sure to go over to youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling for all your wrestling related needs. Be sure to go over and follow our new Twitter page. I will fix that bottom banner thing. Be sure to go follow our new Twitter page at Real Take W, on Twitter. MGT in the chat says, was Miro a Triple H guy before he left? He did get his start in NXT. So you could say he was a Triple H guy, but like, I don't think like that's his label. He's a Triple H guy, right? Because again, I'm just saying here, the best thing Miro/Rusev ever did in wrestling was the Redeemer thing when he was TNT champion. That was the best thing he ever did. So I don't know. Like, I think it's one of those things where they need to have a talk. Hopefully they do. And look, if he goes back to WWE, great. We get to see Rusev kick ass. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, subscribe for all your latest news and updates, and keep it real.